Rodney Grieve has been working with top executives for over 30 years. He's spoken and coached and trained and worked with people in North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa.
As a leader, we've got to be able to communicate in a way to get them to balance that productivity drive that is already there in most people, and also how most businesses measure their success and emphasize, to balance it with what are we doing to make sure we're performing and delivering on safety and on quality and on customer satisfaction, employee retention, employee morale, all the pieces that make a business successful.
You do keynotes, I know that, and you do these longer programs. How do you keep people engaged? What kind of stories do you tell? How do you keep people engaged for like 2 straight days? I'm more of a keynoter. I've done longer programs. I try to avoid them because I know I can keep them like, yahoo, rah, rah, jumping up and down in their seats for an hour. But the guys that could do this for a day or two, how on earth do you keep them engaged that long?
And the particularly challenge there is I'm usually working with people who are not sitting in an office at a computer for 8 hours, right?
They're
They're up, walking around, they're out on the floor. It's not only about keeping them engaged, it's keeping them engaged in a completely different environment that they're normally in.
Sure.
So there's a couple things. One, I recognize that for the vast majority of the people who walk into a workshop with me, they may have some familiar experiences in the past of going through something similar, but they've never gone through a workshop with me the way I do it. So, and then the second is start with the assumption that, they probably don't want to be here. As great as I think I am and how much
you are pretty great.
I think they're going to get
they don't
out
know
of the
you
next few
until
days.
they don't know you till the end. They don't know you up front. Yeah, exactly.
So I got to give them a reason to be there. And not only the technical reason of we're going to help you build some skills and tools to help you be a more effective communicator, I've got to give them an emotional reason to be there, to realize that, oh, you know what? I need to do something different than I'm currently doing. And so in almost all of my workshops, I start with an exercise that very quickly creates some emotion in the room. Oftentimes it's laughter, sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's annoyance. And we capture some of the language that people use around those emotions and get them up on the wall to get people to realize, hey, you know what? If we continue down the path we're going down right now, we're creating those emotions in our work environment. And if those emotions are showing up, then my people aren't going to deliver on the results I'm asking them to deliver. So It's not only getting them to think in terms of how am I going to help them with tools to be successful, the technical side, but also how am I going to create that emotion to get them to want to be there? So that's one. Two, we talked about Carnegie and people's names. So if you engage them and get them to realize that, when people come up to me and say, well, we were an hour in, we just did introductions and you knew 40 people's names. How do you do that? And I talked a little about some of the tools that I use to remember names, some of the things from Carnegie, like association and repetition and all the things that you work hard to learn to get those names.
Write their name with your finger in the air. So there's something physical, kinesthetic about it. And it seems to work for me, but there's different things. There are ways to do it if you put your energy
absolutely.
into it. Yeah, it's very hard though, but it's worth doing.
Absolutely. But the real point for me and the point I make to them is, look, I'm about to ask you to sit and listen to me for 16 hours.
Wow.
I can listen to you for 30 seconds and remember your name. So it's about getting them the feeling that, hey, this is not just about me being the expert, which is the third thing, which is I came out of a world of being a technical trainer, of teaching rules and regulations, policies, procedures. So when I stood up in the front of the room, I was the expert. When you're facilitating leadership, I'm not the expert. And I really like the idea that my workshops are as much about team building as they are about skill building, and the realization that I'm bringing the framework, they're bringing the content. This is about them, not me. It's not about my story. I tell some stories to get them to think about things, but it's really about giving them the opportunity to think and write and create their own story, and then apply what we're talking about to their work environment, to their world. I don't have the magic. I don't have the pixie dust. If I did, I'd be retired on an island like Malta. But
Feel free to come by. I'm there right now for another 2 months.
there
Yeah,
is no
no, I think
pixie
that's true.
dust. There's no
Well,
magic formula.
when you're
There's
making,
no,
well, and they have the pixie dust and they have the magic formula because they are the experts and they said we're different, we're special. Well, yeah,
yep,
you are. You guys have what it takes to be able to do this. And one technique that I believe you taught me years ago that I still use when I do on the very, very infrequent times that I have a full day program, which is to ask people, what would be the absolute best thing in my parlance? It's what if we could do magic and it's the end of the day and you got something out of here that was the most valuable thing you've gotten all year.
right.
Shout out to me. We'll get somebody to write it over here. Shout out to me what that valuable thing would be. And they come up with these great things. And then the gal or guy that is being my scribe writes them all down. Then I always give them like my books or gifts or
Right.
chocolate or something because they were
Positive
nice
feedback.
enough to do that and usually, get picked on for their spelling being wrong. And, I always say spelling doesn't count. But, you were the one that said if you can get them engaged with what do they want to get out of it by the
Absolutely.
end. And then if you I learned over the years, you kept saying, just keep referring back to it. And I would go and I'd say, now it looks here like, Bill, didn't you say that you wanted, we're going to talk about that next. And all of a sudden he's all excited. And I say, yeah, and Irmgard, you said that you wanted, we're going to talk about that too. And it frames it all of a sudden from, oh, this is something we're being forced to be at to,
Yep.
wait a minute, they really care about getting to the thing we want the most out of. I'm usually talking to CEOs or salespeople,
Right.
about getting our sales up or doubling our businesses or some of those things. And what I find is kind of what you said about the list of negatives and positives in leadership is they're going to say the same things that I've heard in every other 2-hour workshop or full day workshop I've done for like the last 25 years. It's going to be in their exact language and
Yep.
in an order that makes sense to them. And they are now engaged with this might have some value for me. And there are some times where you think, oh, I better throw in a story about what Bill or Irmgard wanted, which is extra valuable to them, or capture them during a break and say, let's talk about that one issue you're having and maybe do some quick coaching. But you taught me that like decades ago, and that is one of those valuable things. But I think you're right. They don't necessarily want to be there. I'm lucky in that most of the time when I'm doing these, they do want to be there, but they may have said they want to be there and then they don't when they get there.
They were 2 days behind when they left their office
And now
yesterday,
we're going to make them 2
and
more days
and they're
behind.
going to be
Yeah.
5 days behind when they get back. So
You're
it's
asking them
it's
for a
not that
lot.
they are. It's not that
They're
they're
not
like,
bad people. Yeah,
no.
right. No,
It's just
no,
they
they're
got other
good people.
priorities.
Right. And well, they should. They care about being good leaders when they get back to their office, and being away worries them. But I love the idea that you're able to say, you guys are the experts. I'm usually the expert when we're talking about all this technical stuff or we're talking about safety. But as leaders, you are the experts, and we're just going to give you a framework, and I'm going to help you increase your ability to do things even more effectively and empower them to do that. Nicely done. I am so incredibly honored to have you as a part of the Inspiring Victory tribe at the Inspiring Victory Show. Please do us a favor. We really need your help. Please like, subscribe, share, write a comment. It makes a huge difference with how many people we can reach here at the Inspiring Victory Show, and it makes a big difference to me personally. I want to make sure that we're providing content to as many people as we possibly can so they can grow and succeed. So we'd love to have you continue your membership here at the Inspiring Victory Show. It's free. Helping us out costs nothing, but it makes a huge difference in how many people we can help. So double your business, double your impact, and change the world. And thank you so much for being a part of this extraordinary community. Thank you. All right. So what do you love about being a speaker, like in the industry? What do you love about it?
So I mentioned our son. He lives in Ireland now, in Dublin.
Mhm.
And the other day he sent us a video, a quick video that he had filmed from his balcony of his apartment that is about a block away from Croke Park, which is a large venue stadium there. And Coldplay was playing a concert at the park, and it was crystal clear. He could hear from his balcony, so he was filming it.
Mhm.
And they were playing Fix You, which is one of their, big songs. And the 70,000 people in the audience were singing the song. And it gives me goosebumps just telling the story, let alone watching the video. It was like, okay, that's a drug. Because to get that kind of response from 70,000 people singing your music, right?
Yes.
There's a thrill to that.
Mhm.
And although I've never been in front of 70,000 people,
That's a lot.
there's a thrill to having people listen to you and like nod their heads and make connections and come up to you afterwards and say, "Hey, thank you. That really connect that I'm going to apply that. That's going to work for me. And how can I do this?" And so there's a thrill to it. There's an
Mhm.
energy to it that is different from doing different jobs.
Yeah.
That
That's
being
a, that's
said,
that's
I
a
think
that's a
that
magical
thrill,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, it is. And
It's magical. Yeah. Mm.
I think that thrill actually comes from the fact that you have an audience that are actually listening to you. So now
Mm.
let's take that back to how it applies in the work environment and think how often we hear people say, well, nobody listens to my ideas. Nobody listens to what I have to say. People don't listen
Mhm.
around here because we
Wow.
don't do a good job at listening unless we're in kind of a setup situation like with somebody brought in to speak to a group,
Mhm.
which is why I work so much on listening with my clients. And whether it's in a talk about it in a keynote setting or in a workshop where we spend a whole module on simple listening skills and get them to practice doing some listening. And the fun thing about the way we do the practice around listening is we set some rules around that practice. It's one-on-one opportunities to listen. And that whoever's doing the talking, in other words, not practicing their listening during that practice session, gets to pick the subject, and the subject can be anything they want, except for it can't be about work. And so it really forces a couple things. One, it gives that person a real opportunity to practice their listening, asking questions, using directives, using listening checks to really work on not jumping in and telling their own story, which is our
Mhm.
tendency to do, right? As soon as somebody brings
Of
up
course.
something of we have some interest,
Mhm.
knowledge, some passion about, we jump right in and start talking about ourselves.
Mm.
It
Sure.
really forces them to do that. And it really lets people get to know a little about people they work with that they never would because we don't always take that time to just stop and really listen to the people we work with.
Well,
So
and I imagine what's interesting to them outside of work would have applications in work if they're interested in things that are highly detailed and sophisticated. Well, maybe there's somebody who should be on the whatever highly detailed and sophisticated stuff you've got at work.
absolutely.
If they love to do creative stuff or ideation of things, maybe that's really where they're headed or where they could also contribute once in a while to a team that does that. If I'm
Yeah,
listening correctly and
no,
if I caught that. Yeah,
absolutely.
that would be, I mean,
And
I think that would be very valuable.
if we're going to be really good at being collaborative,
Hmm.
then we've got to know what people need, right?
Mm.
And if we're going to be really good at adjusting our behavior to meet their needs as a leader, then we've got to know what they need. And we need to know a little about them. Because if you just assume that they're showing up at work and going home and that it's all just about the work, then
Mm.
you're missing a big chunk around the motivation and confidence that people have in their lives. And if you've made it
Yeah.
clear that you're not interested in anything about them other than, you hired them from the neck down to come in and do some work, well, that's probably what you're going to get. You're not going to get a commitment to be part of the team. You're not going to get them to be open about what's going on. And you're, as a leader, not going to be able to make adjustments based on things that might be going on outside the work environment that could impact the work they're going to do that day. As much as we'd love to
Mm.
tell our people, hey, leave it in the car and come in and just do your
Mm.
job, we
Mm.
don't.
Doesn't work that way. Yeah, we
We
can't. So
can't.
how we expect them to do that?
So, yeah,
Yeah,
why would
it's
we
not
expect them?
reasonable.
No, it's not.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so you've got to create that environment where people are willing to share a little about themselves.
I think that, yeah, I think that's a big aha for most people. And there are ways to do that. So, what are some ways that leaders can do that, can get to know their people? I think the exercise is wonderful that anybody could do with their team, or they could hire you to come in and do a whole program on that. Because
Sure.
even though everybody's like, oh, I know listening, I know listening. Oh, yeah, I'm a great listener. Even if we know what to do, we don't even do what we know. So, yeah, so saying that
Yes.
you're perfect at that, it would be probably not smart. But is there another thing that somebody could do in order to be able to get more inside the heads and hearts of the people that they work with every day?
Yeah. So my two things. One, I'm a big fan of one-on-one. You want to call them a meeting, call it's fine. Just a regular rhythm cadence set on the calendar. We sit down, whether it's every week or every 2 weeks, and just find out what you're working on, what you're doing, and how you're doing. I
Mhm.
think I run into a bunch of leaders who their thing is, hey, you know what? I tell my people they need me, my door's open, come get me.
Right.
Most people will not do that. Most people will
Right.
not voluntarily go to their leader to sit down and say, hey, here's what I'm working on, here's what's going on. Because sometimes you have to walk in there and say, I'm not making the progress I think I'm making, or I don't know where to even start on this, or I don't understand why this is important for me to continue to do. Those are hard conversations to have unless we've created a regular cadence with that leader and that employee to be able to have those conversations. And sometimes you may not have anything to talk about other than how was your weekend? How are
How are
the
your
family?
kids?
How are the
How are your
kids?
kids? Yeah, exactly.
What's going on in
Feeling.
your world?
Yeah.
So
How's
that
your
you
mom
can
feeling?
understand all the
Mm.
things that are influencing that employee beyond what's
Mm.
just going on in their work environment. So that's
And
one.
that could be, and I think that a lot of times employees are really reluctant to tell you that maybe they have a parent who's sick or there was a flood in their neighborhood and it took their first floor out and they don't, they want to act cool or they don't want you to think that anything's wrong. And I think we're all guilty of that to an extent.
Absolutely.
But if you're not talking to them on a regular basis, it sounds like you're not going to have those opportunities for them to maybe mention, oh, my mom is still really sick and then for you to be able to work kindly around that because usually the rest of the team is more than happy to pitch in and help, but you have to know what's going on. And I think it's not easy for people to tell you, and they're not going to come to you and tell you is what you're saying, correct?
Nope, I don't
No.
think so. My experience
I,
has said no, people aren't.
I would say no too. Yeah. I mean, even no matter how much you like your boss, I can't imagine that, yeah, I'm going to tell them something vulnerable like that without regular conversation to help me do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the away from the work things. I mean, think about the things
Mm.
at work that you're expecting them to move forward on, but if they've hit a roadblock,
Right. They don't want to tell
you're
you
gonna
that.
doing my one-on-one coaching sessions sometimes. I have people say, I'll say, have you gone and it sounds like you're stuck. Have you gone and asked for more direction, clearer direction on what the next steps are, what you need? Have you gone and asked? And they're like, no, 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 I don't want to bother them. They're busy. I'll just figure it
I'll
out.
figure it out. 3 months of sitting and staring in front of the whatever it
It's
is, though.
it's noble, right? It's
Yes,
noble,
it's lovely. Yes.
but it's not effective. It's not
Mm,
effective for them. It's not
mm,
effective for their leader. It's not effective for the organization. Because as you said, if they're sitting there for 3 months beating their head against the wall,
right.
we're not making the progress we need to make. And
Right.
nobody's going to be happy.
No, and then you got a real challenge there. Yeah, so it may be, hey, what are you hitting a brick wall about, or what are you having trouble with, or what can we help you with that might be a little bit you're a little stuck on, or, can we bring in the rest of the team to help you brainstorm on that? It
Yeah,
sounds like you're a little stuck, or
yeah,
is that the right direction? As
absolutely.
you're,
What
as
barriers
you,
can I get out of your way? All those things to understand what's
mm,
stopping them from moving forward. And
mhm.
maybe it's technical. Maybe they need specific training or direction or tools or something. Or maybe it's just, hey, you know what? You've handled this kind of stuff in the past. You know what you're doing. You've had success in this and this and this. I believe in you that you got this and you're going to be great. Just giving people that little boost of self-confidence.
But that's beautifully put because you just didn't say, you'll figure it out. You're great. You said, well, you did this and that worked, and you did this, which is awfully similar, and you did this, which is almost like, almost exactly like what you're doing. I know you'll be able to figure this out too. If you need me, I'm here. But I like that you had some specifics attached to that to help
Absolutely.
build their confidence, not just by saying rah rah, by saying,
Right.
here's evidence. Now I haven't heard anybody say that before. That was really smart. Here's the evidence that you can do this. And I think it's also for the leader, it sounds like what I'm hearing is to be able to assess, is this they need more training? Is this very, very technical? We need to bring in a technical person. Is this they need a confidence boost and you've done this before? You got this. I believe in you. Like what is really going on here? And that gets back to your listening. Is it about making sure you ingest lots of information? Are you listening to a point where you can actually be useful to the person in front of you, correct?
Yeah. And there's a third one there, which is so there's competency, the knowledge,
Okay.
right? The
Yeah.
ability. There's confidence. then I believe I can do it. And then the
Right.
third one is there's motivation, which I can believe I can do something, but frankly, just not want to do it. And as a leader, then you've got to understand, is it confidence or is it motivation? And if it's
Right.
motivation, I need to do different things, like explain why it's important and how it impacts the rest of the organization. If it's
Mhm.
confidence, then it's about past successes and providing positive feedback and encouragement and listening to their concerns. So even within that
Mhm.
piece, there's kind of two different angles, but you've got to listen to know which one it is. Because yeah, if you just do the rah, 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 you got this. Well, yeah,
Right.
I got it. I just don't want to do it. Well, that's not
Right.
gonna
Or
help.
this is the part of my job I hate the most and put off until the end. And then, I've had a couple instances where I found out that something that I thought somebody liked was their least favorite part of the job, only to discover somebody else who works for me loved that part of it. And all we had to do was say, you want that and you want that, and swap out and everybody was happy.
Yep.
And it took me like a year to figure that out because I didn't
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think part of it is that your ability to ask the right questions. You're giving us really good questions and really good ways of discussing things with people. Yeah.
And then I can't remember how we got down this path, but there was a second, which was there was a plant manager I worked with years ago at a modular home manufacturing plant back in California. And his name was Chacho. And every morning, Chacho was at the time clock when his employees arrived. And every evening, he was at the time clock when his employees left. And the cynical person would say, well, he's there to make sure they're not late and that make sure they're not leaving early. He has a clock for that. They're punching a clock. He could sit in his office and have a report to tell them that
Right.
they got there late and they're left early. That's not why he was there. He was there in
Mhm.
the morning to greet them and thank them for being there that day and appreciated their effort for being at work and how important it was that they showed up every day and how much it contributed to the success of the team. And he was there in the afternoons at the end of every shift to thank them for a hard day's work, to answer any questions they may have had, to see what they're doing that evening with their family or how their kids are doing and what they're going to celebrate. It was all about, for him, the personal interaction with the people on that plant floor. And that was his window, 10 minutes each day to be
Wow.
there. And it wasn't with everybody every single day, right?
Of
And
course.
but it was
Mhm.
enough that the people in that organization knew he cared not about how much work they got done. He cared about who they were as people. And sometimes it's just enough for somebody to say, hey, thank you for being here today. Because I have people all the time. It goes back to that positive feedback and that appreciation that we talked about earlier. I have leaders say, come on, Rodney, you really want me to thank people for showing up to work? And I say, yeah, sometimes, because sometimes it's what they need. Sometimes it was really
Mhm.
hard for them to get there.
Yeah.
And I go back to, is it important for you to have your people show up every day? Is it critical to your operations? Well, yeah, absolutely. And so the question I always ask is, particularly if it's a person who's married, so in your case,
Yes, definitely married.
do you ever tell Steve you love him?
Yes, a lot.
Well,
He's really
why?
cute.
Well, why though? Because you told him once, right? When you
I
got
told him when we
married,
got married, and he expects it like 25 years later. No, yeah,
right?
if you
He
don't
should
do it
know.
every single solitary day,
You shouldn't have
we
to
would
tell
still
him
be
over and
married,
over and
right?
over again.
Both of us have been married forever, so we know the power of you got to make sure they
Absolutely.
feel loved.
We
Uh,
repeat and emphasize things that are important to us.
So if you're telegraphing that it's not important to you to appreciate them and thank them, they're going to get that. And if you're telegraphing in very visible verbal ways and physical every way you can, how important, if that is critical to your business, then thanking them does make sense. I can't imagine
Absolutely.
anybody pushing back on that. That's interesting. I guess you're right. They aren't thinking about it in those terms, but with a spouse,
No,
yeah, again, if you want that relationship to keep on working, you're going to have to keep on appreciating the relationship. And I get people who say, but they get a paycheck. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not
that's
why.
what I hear too.
That's what, yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like, yeah, it's not
They get
really
paid for
why
that.
they can work other places and get a paycheck too.
Exactly.
It's like, it's like if you don't tell your spouse you love them, they might find somebody else who will
Yes,
tell them that
you
they
will.
love them very clearly. And it's the same to carry your metaphor even further. It would be the same thing. Yeah, we went so far as to have appreciation be one of our company values, which I hope I uphold well. I know the rest of the team does extraordinarily well. But it was a funny thing because sometimes when people read our company values and we have kindness and appreciation are the top two, and people go, "What?" And then you get down to, excellence and success and growth and things that are also extremely important. We wouldn't have a business if we didn't help other companies to be successful and if we weren't successful. But I really don't think you can have a business without kindness. And I don't think you can keep your people without appreciation.
No.
Or your clients if you're not appreciating them. So I ended up with like the most appreciative people on earth and who out appreciate me, which is always a learning lesson and much appreciated. So interesting that you say that. I'm not sure I'm living that to that level. And so that is giving me some ideas on also improvement personally. I think we can always improve. As the great John Lanier likes to say, excellence always improves. So how are we going to continue? Even if you're good, you can always be better, and good to great, or excellence always improves, from Profit Rainmaking, from his new book. Wow, that's amazing. Nicely done. Do you have any stories that you use to make it stick?
Yes, and real quick, I love it when, and you've probably seen this too, you're watching the room when people are walking in, and you can see on somebody's face when they're walking in that what's going through their head is, you know what, I'm fine. It's all y'all that are screwed up, and if all y'all could get everything in a row, we'd all be great. And I love it when about halfway through day one, that person comes up to me and goes, you know what? This isn't about all y'all. This is about me. This is about how I show up every day for my people. And that's when you've really made an impact with somebody. Get them to stop thinking that they're perfect and the rest of the world's screwed up, to really start to be introspective of, you know what? I can do things differently than I've done them in the past. So yes, back to stories. One of the things I love to do in my workshops is I'll move people around. And it sounds a little kindergartenish to move them into different seats multiple times through the 2-day workshop. But I do it for a very specific purpose, which is we are creatures of habit. People will come into a room and they will sit in the same chair every day for 2 days, because for the only reason that they sat in that chair when they first walked in on day one. They have no emotional attachment to that chair whatsoever, other than they sat there yesterday, and so that's their chair. And even though somebody might go, I'm a rebel, I'm going to go sit in a different table today. You go sit in that chair, and Sarah would walk over to you and say, man, you're in my chair. We are
There's no label.
Of habit. We will not make a change unless that change is either one, mind-blowingly different. It's going to create a huge difference for us, right? And quickly. We're going to see that response very quickly. Well, unfortunately, most changes we make, we don't see those responses very quickly. And that's why every January people make resolutions, and by February they've given up on them, right? Because they don't see the results, and it doesn't come easy and it doesn't come fast. And so we just go back to doing what we've always done. We are creatures of habit. So some of the stories that I tell, so that's why I move people. The other reason is we tend to walk into sessions and groups like this, and we sit with the people we know, who will confirm with us what we already know. By moving them into different seats with different people, they start to interact with people they would not normally interact with, and therefore maybe get a different perspective, maybe hear a different thought, maybe realize that, hey, what we're doing in our department is actually causing your department this problem. I didn't know that, because nobody tells us those things, because we don't have that communication. And I didn't realize what we're doing is having that negative impact on you. How can we make that different?
Oh, lovely. Oh, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
So a couple of my favorite stories. So I already shared the cha-cha one with you. One of the exercises I do is I get people to do some listening to understand where somebody is from that competency and commitment standpoint. But we use just regular activities to give them an opportunity to practice, not non-work related activities, to get an opportunity to practice. And it also gives them an opportunity to get to know the other people well. And so I was up in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and one of the activities is surfing, and surfing on Lake Michigan, which I don't know if you know, but Sheboygan is the Malibu of the Midwest.
Really?
That's what they say. I've never surfed there, but
seriously?
I don't surf, so yes. So the conversation around surfing, and so these two employees chatted about it, and then the one employee reports back out to the group about, for this person, surfing is not something they would want to do on Lake Michigan. And so I looked at the employee and said, so what if I changed up the situation a bit? What about, instead of the cold waters of Lake Michigan, I flew you to Hawaii, full expenses paid, got you a quality surfboard, got you a professional instructor, crystal blue, warm water, perfect environment to learn to surf. Would that change your willingness to learn to surf? And the guy says, no, that'd make it worse. I'm like, how could that possibly make it worse? He goes, there are no sharks in Lake Michigan.
That was his concern.
We can spend
Oh.
an awful lot of time and money and energy trying to motivate somebody to do something based on what would motivate us, not
Oh.
motivate them.
So how do you find out what motivates them? I know there's an easy answer to this, which is ask them, but are there good questions we can use? I'll get into you,
That's all right.
but are there good questions we can use to ask somebody that
I
would
don't
be
know if there's
helpful to
one.
know what motivates them, what they want?
Yeah, well, it comes back to getting to know them, right? So if
It's
you
an
know somebody
everyday thing.
is really into, riding their motorcycle and, wind in their hair, freedom, that's what they really love to do. And you're talking about workplace safety and the risk of injury, and you equate to, you know what, if this goes wrong and you get injured, you're not going to be able to ride your motorcycle. That's very different from saying, if you don't do what we need you to do and you get injured, you're going to get in trouble, right? So it's about understanding your people to be able to provide that feedback, that motivation, that encouragement to get them to do what we need them to do with something that would connect with them. But again, you got to know your people.
You got to know what would connect with them. If they
Yeah.
just had a baby, how are you going to hold the baby if you hurt your arm? Kind of thing. So it's how are you going to be out on your motorcycle? Yeah. So something that would resonate with them or they could see themselves in that picture rather than it being just a generic. I think that's always more powerful. Those are great examples. Those are really good examples. I'm processing. That's a lot to cover. All right. Well, okay. So if somebody's an up and coming leader, right?
Sure.
Like you were a while back,
Yep.
back before we started going gray, you and I. Not that you,
Well,
not you could
actually,
tell.
it's here. It's just
Yeah,
not.
I know you. Yeah, you, yeah, you've gone a little gray. Yeah, I have too, but no one will see. Thanks to my hairdresser, Zoran. Yeah. So, what kind of advice would you have for those up and coming leaders? Like, what's advice for them? What's the first thing they should do? Or just what would you have to say to somebody who's an up and coming leader?
So, two things. So, one is realize there is a clear difference between setting clear expectations and priorities
Mhm.
versus telling somebody how to do the job. So
Wow.
a leader's
Explain that.
role is to set the expectations and priorities, right?
Mhm.
So to be specific and trackable of what it is you're trying to get accomplished and when do you need it accomplished by. Too often, and we tend to say things like, maybe you should think about, or could you possibly think about or get done? But we don't ever say, this is what we need to get done. Here's the specific, here's what good looks like. Here's what success looks like. And here's the time frame associated with it. If we don't do that, we're doing what I call assign and assume. What's in my head must be clear in your head. You're going to go do what I think you're going to go do, and we're going to be great. And unfortunately, we're probably both going to be disappointed.
Mhm.
And the pushback I get from people is, well, that's micromanagement. I don't want to tell them what they have to do. Actually,
Right.
that's your job to tell them.
Right.
It's not your job to tell them how to do it in some cases. In some cases, it might be. If they've never done it
Mhm.
before, you may have to lay out step by step by step.
Including how to put on the gloves. Yeah, if
Right.
they've never done, it's the first day on the job and they've never done that.
Right.
But
If they
yeah,
have done it and they've had success before it, then you just need to set the expectation and let
right.
them go do what they know how to do. Still doing three things, though, always as a leader. One is establishing those expectations, two,
Mhm.
monitoring performance, and three, providing feedback on that performance. Because as soon as you stop monitoring performance and providing feedback, whatever it is you've asked them to do is not important.
So you're demonstrating that it's important by the fact that you are following up on those things and then giving feedback on it each and every time to show that's how you demonstrate that it's important. How else are they supposed to know it's important otherwise? Oh my gosh, you're brilliant. Oh, I love that. I love that. That's really great advice. That's great advice for people who've been leaders for a long time. Oh, I love that. I love that.
And
All
then the
right.
last thing is I go back to where we started in that list of effective and ineffective.
Yeah.
And if you're finding you're getting what I call unreasonable resistance from somebody. Now, if you ask somebody I was down in Arkansas last summer. It was 105 degrees out, 100% humidity, and they work
Oof.
on pieces of equipment that run at about 600 degrees. If
Geez.
you ask somebody to crawl under one of those pieces of equipment and make an adjustment, they're probably going to roll their eyes at you. That's reasonable resistance. I wouldn't want to do it either.
Mhm.
Unreasonable resistance is that resistance where you're thinking, I don't get it. Why are they not making the progress that they should be making? This doesn't seem to be that difficult.
Mhm.
Before you look at them and think, dude, what's your problem? Take a step back because maybe you weren't clear on what your expectations were in the first place. And you and that person weren't
Probably.
aligned on what success looked like or when it had to be done by. Maybe you just assigned and assumed and figured they had it.
Mm.
Or maybe you assumed they had some competency that they did not have. Maybe you confused commitment for competency and them saying, "Oh, I got it, I got it, I got it. Yep, I got it." And then they walk out the door and like, "I don't got it."
Mhm.
Or maybe you confused what I would call transferable skills for competency, which is, oh, they've done similar things. They'll be fine. They know what they're doing when they may not be. Or maybe it's because you just did what you wanted to do from a leader, what you were comfortable doing, and
Mhm.
didn't do what they needed you to do for them. Because if you miss on any of those three, that's what's causing that resistance. So it's not about them,
Mm.
it's about you.
Wow. That is beautifully put, and I will remember that forever. Thank you very, very, very much. It is really wonderful to have you on the show. I really appreciate it. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, I will have it in the show notes, of course, how you can be reached. If there's a specific way you'd like people to reach out and get in touch with you, what would that be?
They can reach out via email, rodney@branta.com. They can also reach out through LinkedIn. Those are
Perfect.
probably the best two ways. Or the website. There's at branta.com. There's a place you can click and send me a note.
Perfect. And I'm sure people will. Well, thank you again for being on the show. You are always enlightening. I always learn wonderful things from you, and it's lovely to spend time with you. Of course, I hope all is well with your whole family. I look forward to seeing you guys. I'm hoping we can meet up in Europe at some point.
Sounds
And
great.
yeah, and
Thank you for having me.
thank you so, so much. And thank you for being a part of our wonderful team of terrific viewers. Thank you for being part of the tribe at the Inspiring Victory Show. Thank you so much. You don't know how much it means when people like and share and subscribe. Oh my gosh, we all get so excited. It keeps us going to keep finding you fabulous guests like our terrific guest today. So thank you. We hope that you're able to enjoy the Inspiring Victory Show, get lots of great content, and of course, be able to double your business and double your impact, especially with those terrific employees that you have, and change the world as a company or as an individual or both. So thank you very much for being a part of the tribe. And thank you, Rodney, for being here with us today. Nice to see you. Thanks.